Hey guys, thought I'd come back and give you guys another video. Basically, I just want to do like a update video, I guess, and then I'm going to do a little, hopefully a little short video on M1 op rods. Just informational stuff, not anything special. But as far as the update goes, kind of where I've been, why haven't I been making any videos? So where I've been is obviously working. Why I haven't made any videos is when I first posted all these videos, there didn't seem to be a whole lot of people viewing them. So not a whole lot of interest in them. So as I stated in, I don't know, one of the videos or two of the videos, if people didn't want to watch them, I wouldn't waste my time making them. And a while back I was on YouTube watching some stuff and clicked over on my channel, and because I had pretty much just kind of loaded off, but I clicked over on my channel and it has like over 200 subscribers now. So obviously some of you guys want to watch it, and 200 subscribers is plenty good enough for me to continue doing videos. So I'm going to start back up with the videos, some previews of stuff that I hope to cover is one, this Smith here. We're gonna cut the barrel off of it, 3¼ inches, I believe. We're gonna mill a dovetail in it. I may try to get that on a video. Don't know if I will or not, but we'll see. Got some stuff that I wanted to cover before I stopped making videos. And I never made the videos then, before I kind of thought it was a waste of my time even making videos. But one of the things I wanted to cover or do a video on, a couple of them, headspace is one, and then like welding and heat treating being another one, that are two very important aspects of gunsmithing that I think is overlooked a lot of times by a lot of smiths or upcoming smiths or just hobby smiths or whatever. I mean, to me it seems like it's overlooked and not put to the level of importance that it should be. So I want to cover, a video to, cover them videos probably in a format like the 1911 barrel videos that I did. Just kind of a discussion showing you some of this, and giving you some information the way I see it, the way I learn it, the way I understand it. I'm not a professional heat treater. I'm not a metallurgist, and I'm not an expert, but I have studied it pretty good. I think I have better than a basic understanding of it. And as far as welding goes, of course I used to be a welder by trade, so that's pretty much no big deal for me to do any kind of that stuff. But so I'm going to cover some stuff like that. What else? Just, I don't know, what all I'll cover, what all is coming down, but there's some stuff that interests me that I think some of you guys would like to know or know how to do, or whatever. But I guess one of the videos, I guess I'll do some more grand stuff for you guys, because that seems to be that, or the 1911 barrel video. It seems to be the most popular of my videos that I've got. So I'll probably do a little bit more of the grand stuff. The 1911 stuff's kind of done to death, so unless something cool comes in, or whatever, I probably won't do anything like that. I mean, if I get a barrel in that I need to do a little fitting on, to do it. I hadn't been doing a whole lot of 1911 work lately. It's been like bolt gun stuff, and threading. I'm about tired of threading barrels. But anyway, I want to do some grand stuff, and I think what I'm going to try to do on this video here, hopefully short, it'll be short, but I don't know, is just discuss M1 op rods. There seems to be a lot of misunderstandings about that, and it's kind of basic. It's not going to be, you know, basically I'm going to discuss the bends, why they're there, some areas for you to inspect on your op rod, some specs that your op rod should fall in to be inspected, to stuff to look for related to the op rod and gas cylinder. I don't know how much of that I'll cover in this video. I'll probably do a real detailed video later on about that, but I can't get too much into the op rod stuff because I do rebuild these for one of the big companies, and the guy who I traveled to his place to learn this from, I paid a lot of money and basically made an agreement with him that I wouldn't, you know, disclose the information to other folks because it would hurt his, you know, his economics. Obviously, if you got, you know, 1,000 people rebuilding op rods, then the one or two guys in the country that still do it is not going to make as much money. Now, for me, it's not a big problem because I've got other contract stuff to fall back on. But, you know, he does this stuff pretty primarily, so I'm not going to do anything to hurt his business anyway. So I can't get into specifics on rebuilding op rods. I would love to, but I can't do that. But there's some stuff that I can, you know, give you, especially you guys who don't know a whole lot about M1s. I mean, some of you guys who are collectors and stuff like that, you'll probably know what I'm fixing to talk about, but we're just talking about basic stuff. So let me cut the camera, get set up, and we'll just kind of do like a little overview of an op rod and, you know, kind of why they are the way they are, and, you know, the fact that they are supposed to be bent, you know, because we did get a lot of that at CMP when I was working there as an armor answering the phone all the time. I couldn't tell you how many calls I've had where people call up and say, you know, that their op rod was bent and they needed a new one. But so let me get set up over here, and we'll just talk about op rods for a few minutes. Alright, so here we are with a couple of regular full-length op rods, a tanker op rod and a tanker grand with the op rod that I just built for him. And so basically what you need to understand, and this is just basic stuff, this is not going to be nothing into depth. As you can tell here, that this op rod is bent. It runs straight, then it's bent, then it straightens back out. The reason that is because, as you can see, this barrel here, big diameter here, smaller diameter here. Then you have the gas cylinder that sets offset from the center line of the barrel. So it's got to be bent in order to work. Otherwise, this gas cylinder would have to be lengthened between center to center of the gas port area versus the splined ring area of the way it mounts onto the barrel. So that would have to be, you know, lengthened or spaced out if the op rod was to be a straight op rod. So that's kind of why it's bent. It's got to be bent that way because of the design of the gun. Things that you should know, I guess, about op rods. Number one, what you should look at when inspecting your op rod. Let's say you have a problem where it's jumping off the receiver, you know, every few times you shoot it, or maybe every time you shoot it. And what that's going to be is going to be this rear pad here. Some call it a tab. Right here. If this thing is beat up and rounded off and all this stuff, then you're going to have, it's not going to want to ride in the track that it's in. Dimensioning that, like I said, there's dimensions that this thing has to have, be it height here, width, thickness on the bottom, if you can see that. This part here has to be a certain thickness so that it will fit without bottoming out in the track of the receiver, or the groove of the receiver. Well, we'll call that a track of the receiver. Then you have a groove in the receiver down here that the thickness of this piece here, right here, right in front of my thumb, that's pretty shitty op rod. Let me try this one. Alright, that's got to be a certain thickness, okay? All of that's got to fall within the tolerance, and that tolerance is not necessarily do or die. It can be different for one gun to the other. If you got a tighter receiver, then the tolerance can be sloppier. You know, if you got a sloppier receiver, the tolerances need to be a little bit tighter. But that's what keeps it in track, because when you install it, it slips in right here so that it can go in and then push down, and it can ride in the track of the receiver. So you want to look at your pad and make sure that it looks squared, that this portion here is squared, not tapered like this one. You see how badly that one's worn? It's tapered from the back, from this side. It's tapered from here to there. That will absolutely probably jump out of track. Well, absolutely, there's no doubt about it. The corners being rounded off, alright, that'll help it jump out of track. And this is all, how bad this is going to depend on how often it jumps out. You know, you may have one that's just not quite that bad, and it jumps out every couple hundred rounds, or every 100 rounds, or 50 rounds, or whatever it is. And then you could have one that looks good, but it's not in spec, and it still jump out of track, give you problems. So as far as specs go, I guess the only one I'm really going to give you is going to be the Piston. These things need to mic. They need to mic. I think it's, I need to get my book out and see. But they need to mic 525.5 to 526.5-ish. Again, that's the spec, but it could be larger or smaller depending on the gas cylinder. See, that's another thing that it's like with anything else with guns. Every gun is different, especially stuff like this that was built by hand on, you know, manual milling machines and such. Each individual person built their own, you know, receiver or op rod or what have you. This stuff's not built like it is today. Of course, it's built a lot better than stuff is today. But point is, every gun's different. So if you had a questionable op rod, or let's say you had an op rod that just almost would cycle your rifle, but not quite. If you gauge the gas cylinder, you would see that there's some wear in the gas cylinder. Alright, so if you and your buddy both had an M1 and yours was a little bit more, you know, war than his, then you could probably trade, if it wasn't a collector gun, you know, parts matching, you could probably trade him your op rod and it would cycle fine in his gun, and then his would cycle in your gun. So there's different stuff like that that you can look into for that. But so your piston needs to gauge, and I suggest, because I'm just going off a whim here, that you actually go look for the dimensions for this. But the dimensions are going to be pretty much, if it's 525, even in a real good gas cylinder, it's probably not going to work. It might, but it's probably not going to work. And if it's bigger than 526.5 to 527, it's probably going to want to bind in your gas cylinder, or you're going to have the perfect tuned op rod, meaning the bends are all exactly right for your specific rifle. When you're straightening op rod, or when I say straightening, when you're straightening out op rods, of course I use a gauge and barreled actions that I run them in and check them all out with that. But sometimes you can straighten out an op rod, and it's still, for some reason, the way, you know, maybe the customer's barrel's not clocked exactly top dead center, or something like that. Something to do with his individual assembly may not want to work flawlessly on that. And I get people all the time too that, you know, because with every kind of gun collectors out there, or gun gurus on this gun or that gun, there's always the guy who says everything's got to be perfect, and, you know, all that good stuff. So let me hopefully help you to understand this too. Okay, tilt test. I'm sure all of you've heard about the tilt test. It's where you take the gun, you tilt it, it unlocks. You tilt it forward, it goes back and locks. Yes, that just means that your op rod is tuned perfectly for your application. Meaning, this receiver to this barrel with this gas cylinder, you know, with them handguards, with that lower band, yada yada yada. Okay, but just because if it won't tilt test, okay, that does not mean the gun won't run. Okay, tilt test just means that there's almost no drag. There's no binding anywhere. Now, when you shoot the rifle, a little bit of bind or drag here and there is not going to stop it. Alright, if you have an issue where you have some binding and dragging, and then the gun gets excessively dirty, or you're shooting it in the desert or something like that, then you're more susceptible to have a malfunction because of that. But just because your barreled action or Grand won't tilt test doesn't mean that your op rod is bad or won't work. It could be better, but it'll probably work for the life of the gun, for the life of you or whoever else has it after you. So that's pretty much the way that goes. There's a lot of things that can be wrong with your op rod that most people don't understand. They automatically assume that it's going to be the bend that is the problem, and 90% of the time it is. But there's all kind of stuff. It could be handles, or, you know, the handle here is bent up or down, tweaked side to side. The op rod itself could be bent right this way, but bent side to side. Alright, see, these op rods need to be straight side to side, but bent up and down. So if you have one that's bent side to side, then you're going to have issues. If you got one that's the rod portion of the op rod is great, but the handle is bent, then it's going to cause your tube part of your op rod to run, you know, out of whack from your gas cylinder. So that's going to cause you issues too. And because I didn't plan for this video, I don't know really what else to say. Let me see if I can think of something else. And like I said, you have, even when you're using a gauge, okay, you have different op rods that run on that gauge different. And they're totally different, meaning how high or low off the gauge they are. But as long as the bends and all that stuff line up, it'll still work on your rifle pretty much. Now, with all of these people that want to tell everybody, you know, because maybe it's a guy who has a Garand and he thinks he's a guru, you know, if you're going to let somebody work on your op rod, make sure you let somebody that's qualified, that knows what they're doing, work on that thing, because most gunsmiths aren't going to know or most people, and even collectors, aren't going to know how to fix an op rod. There's very select few of us who can do this, and that's who you should be getting in touch with. Now, for people that's been sending me messages or leaving comments about wanting my contact info and all this stuff to send me stuff, the reason I haven't replied to you, which was kind of I guess an asshole move, maybe I should have replied, but I don't want to start taking in with all the contract work and stuff I got, and I'm a one-man shop as far as the gunsmithing part of this goes. Now, with the grand stuff, I got people working for me that helps me do some of that stuff, but with gunsmithing in general, I'm a one-man shop, and if I start taking in too much, well, which will turn into too much stuff off the internet. Don't get me wrong, I would like to do that, and I might do some of that, but if I do, it's going to end up overwhelming what I can do, and then you're going to have people pissed off because you can't get their gun done, in a timely fashion. So with all the work I got right now, that's why I haven't been putting my contact info out there. If you can find a way to get in touch with me through messaging, IMs, or whatever, all that jazz is on YouTube. You can find a way to get in touch with me, and if it's something that you cannot get someone else to do, I'll be glad to do it for you. But give your local gunsmith a shot, not necessarily on grands, but at working on your guns before you just send it to someone on an internet that may be many states away from you or whatever. Give your local guys a shot. Check into them, obviously. Make sure they got the tools and equipment to do the job if it's custom stuff. But give your local gunsmiths, give them a shot at your business before you send it all over the country for somebody else to work on. And I guess that's all I got to say about that. And as far as answering comments, I'm not real big on typing and sitting behind a computer all day and that kind of stuff. I will answer some as I can get to them. Gunsmithing questions, however, I'll probably, if I can answer something that's pretty simple, I will. But gunsmithing questions, usually they're too into depth to be trying to type stuff back and forth with each other. Would take way more time and effort to try to answer some of your technical questions than it would be person, face to face or something like that. So with that, what I'll probably do is take up, maybe do a list of kind of like a lot of these guys do. I watch some of these guys like Iraq Veteran 8888. He's got a real good channel, really informative on stuff. He'll do like questions and answers type videos. A-Bomb 79, I believe, he does the same thing. And it's easier to answer a question to me like that than it is through, text. So if again, regardless of what the question is, I don't have time to sit around and answer all these questions. But I will, I will answer what I can as I have time to do it. But I will definitely try to take ever so often, take a bunch of questions that's been asked to me and try to answer them on a Q&A video. And I'll try to come up with some more M1 stuff as I can go. I don't want to do the same thing over and over. I want to do some, I want to do some diverse stuff. As far as the comments I made about doing gunsmithing the old way by hand with hand tools, the more I've come to think about that too. I'm going to still do them, but that's not realistic. I mean, really, I would say 90% of my work requires mills and lathes. So that some of that machine work I'll have to get thrown in there too. And again, like I said, just leave me your feedback. Let me know what you want me to do. If there's a video you want to see, and if it's something that I can arrange where, you know, I happen to have something in the shop that, you know, goes with that specific topic, then we'll do a video on it. I don't know how often I'm going to be able to get you guys any videos, because like I said, I am working pretty mad here. I've been pretty backed up for a while now. Backed up for me anyway. But so hopefully this helps some of you guys out. I know it's not really informative, but there's not a whole lot about op rods that I can tell you that won't break the deal I made with the guy who I learned how to build op rods from. But like I said, just remember these op rods are supposed to be bent, and obviously, you know, the shorter op rods are going to be bent a little bit different than the longer op rods, kind of, sort of, within reason. Op rods don't have to tilt test to work fine. I mean, I would honestly have to give it probably 75% of guns that work flawlessly right now that you could go to the CMP and buy is not going to tilt test. So that's kind of a myth that if it don't tilt test, that's what's wrong with your gun. Tilt test is good because that means your op rod is, you know, perfectly tuned to all of the parts that it's connected to or works with, but don't necessarily mean that it won't work. So like I said, just keep that in mind. Now, as far as pistons go, like I said, that goes to, there's a standard and tolerances that we work off of rebuilding them. There's tolerances that there's same tolerances that they worked off when they originally built them, but that don't necessarily mean that if yours is out of spec that it's not going to work, or if it's in spec that it is going to work, because your other parts will also help dictate that. If you got a borderline bad gas cylinder and you got a perfect op rod, it still probably may not work. So it's not always going to be your piston that's the problem. A lot of times it's the gas cylinder that's bad. When you're measuring your, let me throw this in there too, this would be a good bit of information for you guys who don't know. Some of you probably do. But when you're measuring your pistons on your op rods, okay, measure them. You can measure them all the way around, that's fine too, but it's kind of a waste of time to me. To me, your wear is going to be, from my experience, most of your wear is going to be, if you're looking at the op rod straight up and down like it would be on, or let's look at the barrel action. If you're looking at this rifle, alright, your wear is going to be top, bottom, and side to side on your gas cylinder and or your op rod. So when you measure, like I said, getting the measurement all the way around is great. That's fine. But as long as you will take a good measurement, 90 degrees, across the axis of the operation of the op rod, and it measures right, and you get a measurement of 90 degrees from that, you know, basically crossways and up and down, and it measures good, then chances are you're good to go. You shouldn't have any, you know, inconcentricities or anything like that. Now if you're measuring all the way around and you happen to find a spot that's bad, or if you got some real bad dings in the end of your piston, that can cause, you know, your op rod can be in spec also and still be bad because of dings and gouges that lets gas escape past it, even with a good gas cylinder. Now, if you had one that's a little bit dinged up and it's not working so well and your gas cylinder is kind of ballpark okay, then you could change the gas cylinder out. The gun will probably run fine. So just some of the little tidbits on op rods. I don't think anybody's covered this. Maybe they have, I don't know, but I figured I'd cover it because a lot of you guys love the grand videos. Another consideration to look at too is from the factory, or if you have a guy rebuild an op rod for you, the op rod itself, or the piston itself, I don't know if you could tell this, okay, The piston itself is basically larger than the diameter of the tube. Okay, because you know anybody who knows anything about welding or any kind of materials and stuff like that know that not every piece of tube is concentrically in the middle of the metal. You know, like a barrel on a rifle, the reason you indicate the bore of it when you're doing work for accuracy instead of the outside is because you can't drill a hole perfectly centered. Neither can you draw hot steel over a mandrel to make tubing or roll tubing perfectly centered. So if you have a op rod that your piston is kind of sitting off to the side where it's flush with the tube or beyond flush, like the tube sticks out further than the piston, then you're going to have issues with that for sure. It's not going to want to work very well. If it's flush, you can probably make it work, but you're going to have to tweak the op rod off of how it should be done right to make it work. Again, this is stuff your guys are not going to do. There's only a few people that's going to do this, and you're going to have to, seek out them guys to get it done. But just some inspection things for you to look for. You may have a perfectly good op rod, perfectly good piston, but it still won't run. Your barrel's clocked right and all your parts are right, but it still just has a lot of bind and will not function. Then you could also look for that and make sure that your piston's centered on your tube of the op rod, because that can cause you issues too. So just remember them few things. That should help you out. Now obviously most of you guys aren't going to be able to measure this either, but there is a measurement that you measure the length of this op rod. Most of you guys aren't going to have a way to measure that, so I'm not even going to put that into the video, and or even a way to fix it if it's wrong. So basically this is more like just a basic understanding of these op rods, how they work, and kind of what you can look for if you're having issues with yours, or maybe what you can even put into the note that you send with you send to the guy that you're going to send your op rod to have it rebuilt as to what you found to be wrong with it. Now, he don't need that, or at least he shouldn't need that, because he should be doing all of these checks and a lot more checks than what I'm telling you about, that I can't tell you. He should do all of that, perform all of that, to determine what's wrong with it to begin with. But you'll have other issues, such as the end of your cam angle right here will be boogered up and maybe rounded off real bad, and that can cause issues with locking and unlocking. Mostly unlocking when it comes to this side, locking when it comes to this side. So like I said, just a little short video, or hopefully it's short enough. I don't know what it's going to end up being time I did the little channel update and everything, but I'll be back as soon as I can with another video, and like I said, hopefully we can get something going on this thing and turn it into a pretty good informative channel. And as a disclaimer, anything you see in my videos is just for informational purposes only. Anything you attempt to do on your own weapon or somebody else's, you're liable for. I cannot be held liable for it. And any information that I put out, because I don't know everything, any information that I put out that may not be, facts, I will retract and correct, or feel free to correct me, so long as you know what you're talking about. And I know there's a lot of guys who will probably get on there and try to correct people and don't know what they're talking about, but, it's up to you guys to research, and to basically make up your own mind who's right, who's wrong. The best person to be right is take the information, double check the information for yourself, then you know if it's right or not. So I want anybody to feel free to correct any mistake that I make on any of the videos that I do, because this is primarily for educational purpose. So it's not that I'm the know-it-all and be-all of everything. It's just that this is what I know of it, and sometimes I may misspeak like a lot of people do, and say the wrong thing and not even catch it during editing or whatever. So at any time, anybody, you know, watching the video or subscriber or even another gunsmith or even some of the YouTube guys, gunsmiths, that you feel that I'm wrong or I misspoke or something, you know, absolutely correct it. So you know, the people who are watching this to learn something won't be misinformed. So appreciate you watching. I'll be back as soon as I can.